Aadhaar debate takes center stage once again, and this time the centre opens the Pandora's box by making Aadhaar mandatory for banking.
You will now have to submit your unique identification number or the Aadhaar number if you want to open a bank account or even conduct high-value transaction. Not just that, the government has also said that those with existing accounts must also disclose their unique identification number and link it to their bank account by the 31st of December. Failing to do so will lead to suspension of your account.
The mandatory linkage of Aadhaar with bank accounts has ruffled quite a few feathers, and the biggest concern is a breach of privacy.
I don't want that Aadhaar card to give to the bank or give to anybody. I don't want, because of that my Aadhaar card, my every details given to anybody, then he can also use my card.
उसका जो भी रूल्स है रेगुलेशन सबको बताना चाहिए क्या है, तो शो करेंगे तो अगर सही है तो करना ही पड़ेगा सबको. अगर हाँ, अगर वो गवर्नमेंट के लिए अच्छा है, अपने डेवलपमेंट के लिए, इकोनॉमिकल हो या कोई भी, तो उसके लिए करना चाहिए, करना जरूरी है तो करना है.
Yes, I do believe that the PAN card should be sufficient. Everybody has already given their PAN card details, and the Aadhaar card, why should they insist on it?
It's good, no? Yeah. Because everyone has some proper identity and proper linkage, and how many account I am holding.
I think it doesn't really make any sense, because PAN card has been, it's very safe, and then PAN card has been recognized as a very authentic identity for people. And now asking for Aadhaar card again is going to be a big problem.
बहुत अच्छा मूव है. उसका कारण ये है कि जो भी पैसे इधर उधर हेरा फेरी करते थे वो सब पकड़ में आ जाएंगे. इसलिए सर्वश्रेष्ठ मूव है. जो गलत काम करने वाले वो उससे डर रहे हैं, जो सीधा सीधा चलने वाले हैं वो खुश.
And then there are those who claim that these are tactics to make the Aadhaar mandatory, even though the Supreme Court recently clarified that the government cannot scrap PAN enrollment of people who don't have an Aadhaar card. As confusion over Aadhaar reigns supreme again, we ask, should Aadhaar be mandatory for banking? Do the benefits outweigh the risks? Mirror Now report.
We've asked this question several times on whether or not Aadhaar is safe, and the Supreme Court is currently looking at whether or not Aadhaar infringes in any way on our right to privacy. But, picking another backdoor entry, the government has now decided that by the 1st of December, if you have not submitted your Aadhaar number to link it with your bank account will be frozen. There are a couple of things we have to ask right now. What happens to the money in my bank account when my bank account is frozen, for example? What happens to NRIs who are overseas with no plans to travel back to India and apply for Aadhaar cards in the next 6 months? Does that mean they lose access to their bank accounts? What happens if there is a bank account currently registered on the name of a 5-year-old? Will the 5-year-old have to apply for an Aadhaar card as well? What is the government thinking? And if the Supreme Court has repeatedly now twice said that Aadhaar cards cannot be made mandatory, why is the government insisting on doing so? But the fundamental question we're asking this evening is this: should the Aadhaar card be made compulsory for banking? If it is made compulsory for banking, does it in any way infringe on our right to livelihood? I need my bank account to do my job. I need my bank account to conduct business. I need my bank account to simply live day to day. An observation made by the Supreme Court on the 9th of June. If you tell me I can't have access to my bank account because I have not given you my Aadhaar number, are you infringing on my fundamental rights? The question we're asking this evening, even to you viewers, is should Aadhaar be made compulsory for banks? And remember, we're still staring at a situation where we've had repeated leaks of Aadhaar information, where there is no real and conclusive evidence to us that our Aadhaar data is safe. If you now link it to our bank accounts, you've also linked it to our phone data, all of that not safe right now. Why is the government insisting on making Aadhaar compulsory one way or the other? That's the question we're asking. Of course, like we do always on this show, every panelist will have 2 minutes on the buzzer to make their opening statements, to make sure that everyone can make their statements and everybody is heard. Joining me on the show this evening, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, National Spokesperson of the BJP. Roongta is a Sebi Registered Investment Advisor who's very familiar with the banking system. Anupam Saraph is the former CIO of Pune City, Information Technology Advisor to Manohar Parrikar in Goa. He's also fighting a case against Aadhaar in the Supreme Court. Apar Gupta is a lawyer with the Supreme Court. Vishwas Utagi is a member of the All India Bank Employee Association. Ritesh Bhatia, cyber security expert. Swapnil Kothari is a senior lawyer. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. I want to start first with Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Mr. Agarwal, thank you for joining us. I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock to please tell us and help us understand why the government wants Aadhaar to be mandatory for banking, and why the government is insisting, despite everything we've heard from the Supreme Court, to make Aadhaar mandatory for all of us. Mr. Agarwal, your time starts now.
The one thing I want to mention to the viewers through your channel is that linking of Aadhaar, a unique identity, is very important, because either through the social security schemes or delivery scheme mechanism of delivery from the government schemes, there was large scale leakages. We have seen if that multiple identities created for the social security scheme was one of the major source through which corruption was flowing. And if I will quote one of the CAG report some 3 years back, which said that out of 26 social security scheme, there was large scale leakages that was being done through multiple leakages, multiple identities that were created. Therefore, Aadhaar was created for a single unique identity for each individual. Now the ultimate only creating identity is not important. It is creating identity and linking it to various mechanism or issues through which the manipulation takes place. Banking channel is one of the important instrument through which people were opening multiple bank accounts, through which they were creating layering. Even this money laundering was being done through multiple bank accounts. So what the government want is that there should be a one bank account through which the transactions should flow for each individual, so that there cannot be money laundering or layering of transactions. This is very important. There is large scale leakages in our tax compliance data also. There is large scale leakages in delivery mechanism. All this leakages, if they have to be controlled and plugged. This is very important, that we ecosystem where single identity is linked to the bank account and all government schemes or funds flow through that single identity, so that audit trail is there and people are
your time is up. Your time is up, Mr. Agarwal. Swapnil Kothari, I'm going to bring you in here. These are the points Gopal Krishna Agarwal made. Plugging leakages and stopping corruption, stopping money laundering, and making sure that there is one bank account for transactions for for all citizens. We are allowed to have multiple bank accounts. Secondly, if you are plugging leakages in public distribution systems, there are some of us who have no subsidies coming in from the government at all. We may choose not to have Aadhaar cards. And isn't the PAN card then meant to stop money laundering? Why are we duplicating those efforts? Swapnil Kothari, do you believe that Aadhaar should be made mandatory for banking? Your time starts now.
No, Faye, I do not believe that it should be made mandatory at all for the banking, sector at all, for the simple reason that it's a violation of the right to livelihood, as you pointed out correctly, and also the right to privacy under Article 21 of the Constitution. Now, that particular aspect is still pending with the Supreme Court of India, and it's pending with the 5-judge bench, and I'm sure that they'll take this, the concerns of the people into account. Now, what I find it amusing is that the government of the day seeks to intimidate us every day that, please, if you do not link this, to the PAN cards, then you'll face problems under the Income Tax Act. If you do not link to the bank accounts, then we'll freeze your accounts. So basically, after demonetization and even the step to that, and even thereafter, I'm not against demonetization. I'm just on the way the message is conveyed. I think we are getting to be more of a Nazi state or some sort of a communist state, a police state, where our rights are whittled down, and transgressed every single day by the government. And I don't see this very, very desperate need to hurry up with all these things before the Supreme Court comes out with its judgment. On the 9th of June, the Supreme Court came out with this judgment on the PAN cards. Of course, it upheld the constitutional validity of 139AA of the Income Tax Act for different reasons. But before it comes out on that judgment, the government of the day, the centre, comes out very smartly under the prevention of money laundering rules. With this particular notification of linking this to the bank, linking our bank accounts, to the Aadhaar card. So it clearly, what it tries to say is that, well, if you don't do this, then, our goal is to prevent the money laundering. We want to ensure that we are corruption free, etc. So this is something which I feel is extremely, extremely intrusive.
Roongta, do you believe that banking and Aadhaar should be linked?
Before I say that, I must confess, I tried reading that notification before I came in here, and it's a fairly complicated notification. First, I don't think Aadhaar can be made mandatory simply because unless you've stayed 180 days prior to applying for Aadhaar, you cannot apply for Aadhaar
182,
itself.
Sir.
So very, very clearly, I think it is meant to segregate people who have a unique identity from people who don't. You mentioned at the beginning about non-residents. Non-residents are not eligible to apply for Aadhaar, so there is no question of their, giving Aadhaar. So I think this mandatory bit is something that needs to be studied more clearly. Let me come back to purely to banking. I think there is a lot of concern about banking. Now, one of the things with banking, I don't think anybody can argue that you don't do proper KYC. KYC stands for Know Your Customer. I think knowing who is the account holder helps you do a lot of things. It helps prevent money laundering, which is the primary reason. I mean, money laundering is the route through which corruption money flows in. Money laundering is the route through which terrorism money flows in. Money laundering is the route to a lot of evils that happen within the society. We are already having KYC. It's not that anybody is arguing against KYC. I think very clearly UIDA or the Aadhaar card is a very, what shall I say, a very effective means of KYC.
It is not?
PAN card really is not, simply because it is not a unique identity. There clearly have been committee reports which say that there are duplication. Right to privacy is a much, much bigger issue. I think it goes beyond banking, and if that is an issue, that's not going to be limited to banking.
Right. I want to bring in Ritesh Bhatia as a cybersecurity expert. Ritesh Bhatia, just the other day, we had information of Bangalore, actually, people who are not even Indian nationals who had bought Aadhaar cards for 100 rupees each. Yes. So if we believe that the PAN card is not a reliable KYC document, is there any reason to believe that the Aadhaar card is, Ritesh?
Absolutely not. I mean, if you go and watch on YouTube, people have started showing up how to create fake ID cards also. I mean, fake Aadhaar cards also. And secondly, I agree what they're saying is about KYC, know your customer. We already have that. So then why this Aadhaar card integration? Is it basically to say that, okay, know your customer and now know your citizen also very well? Do you want to perform that kind of a surveillance on us? Like every move is noted, and even
what kind of moves are we talking about?
Any kind of move, whatever I'm spending, whatever I'm doing, my habits, we all know. I keep repeating on your channel that the data is the new oil, and this is what we are talking about. They are just getting data everywhere. I'm not just saying only in India. Every country is doing it with its citizens, and quite surprisingly, we are going too fast without adequate security and privacy measures. We have no privacy law. We ourselves have seen, you are aware about the incidents where all these Aadhaar numbers have been displayed, they have been leaked, there have been breaches. Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal was talking about large-scale leakages, but what about large-scale leakages even of the database? Even that has to be considered. We recently witnessed, we were the 3rd most attacked country. We overall are as the 5th most attacked country, cyber attacked country. all the time people are like just looking how to attack our systems. Yes, we may have rock solid systems, but ultimately wherever there is technology, there is going to be a particular breach.
Wherever this technology is going to be a breach, and Ritesh Bhatia says, no, your Aadhaar should not be made mandatory for banking. A few more voices. Anupam Saraph, former CIO Pune City. Anupam Saraph, where do you stand?
Yeah, I would like to first list out 4 reasons why Aadhaar should not be made mandatory. And then, given the time, I'll try to elaborate on each one of them. So the first is that it's not in national interest. So if you were to basically look at using the Aadhaar for banking, it makes the banking system extremely vulnerable to destruction, and it makes it vulnerable to frauds propagating across the entire banking system. The second is that it puts every customer of every bank to risk of a sudden freezing of their bank account because their Aadhaar is disabled. So far, the UIDAI has disabled 85 lakh Aadhaar numbers without assigning any reasons to those whose UID numbers they are. The third is, as I have been repeatedly saying, that the Aadhaar has not proved itself to be a flawless identity or as a proof of identity or a proof of address. So using it for anything and everything is an enormous risk. It is like an obsessive compulsive disorder to link it to every given thing. The fourth is that the Supreme Court has categorically said from the very first order that no person may suffer for want of Aadhaar, irrespective of any authority mandating Aadhaar. And it has thereafter 6 times reiterated that Aadhaar is a voluntary scheme. It has also restricted the use of Aadhaar to only 6 uses. So if I were to go back and explain a little bit of how Aadhaar is a risk to the banking system. Once you link your Aadhaar to your bank account, you make it accessible to an Aadhaar to Aadhaar money transfer. The Aadhaar to Aadhaar money transfer is run by a non-government company called the National Payments Corporation of India.
Right.
This particular system works on the premise that you specify an Aadhaar number.
Right. To be fair, Mr. Saraph, you've run out of time. I will come back to you to allow you to explain that a little more. I have 2 more guests who have to make their points.
Sure.
Apar Gupta is a lawyer with the Supreme Court. Apar, we have to ask the question about whether or not deactivating bank accounts in December that have not linked their Aadhaar cards, does this in any way infringe on fundamental rights of livelihood?
I would say it most certainly impacts people's right to livelihood, and what we have seen also existing to Aadhaar, and this has been the experience because Aadhaar was first made mandatory for social service entitlements such as rations and LPG subsidies, is that it's led to a wide instance of deprivation. This is not anecdotal evidence which we find in the newspapers of people climbing trees for authentication, but finds a categorical mention in the National Economic Survey which was presented alongside the Union Budget this year. It noted that authentication failures, which is essentially that when I place my thumb and my biometric does not match, or my iris scan does not match, and I am not entitled, and I don't get, even though I'm entitled to a certain service, I don't get it. These failure rates range up to 40 to 60% in certain states. And what happens is that then these people who are denied their right to life itself are left without any remedy, because the Aadhaar Act only provides you with a helpline number, which is ironically 1947, where you call and basically a call center adjudicates your legal rights of entitlement. Now imagine what happens if we link this to bank accounts and biometric is made the basis for you to gain access to your account itself. Will 40 to 50% of Indians be patient enough to retry their biometrics again and again? And what happens in those instances where the biometrics permanently mismatch?
In fact, I must also point out that an entire community of people who have apostrophes in their names, the apostrophe is not received or not recognized by the Aadhaar authorities. So if it doesn't match with your PAN card, all of South India, for example, who have initials before their name, sometimes the initial is in the front, sometimes it's in the back. So V Sridhar and Sridhar V will have problems when the PAN card says one thing and the Aadhaar card says something else. All of these are things we will have to consider. And if it results in us not being able to access our own money, then where does this leave us? Vishwas Utagi, who is a banker, tell us this. How many problems do bankers already have with the KYC system, and how important is it, or how much of that will the Aadhaar solve?
For opening the bank account, KYC norms are already there, and that is necessary. But then, at that time, the identity proof and PAN card is also being asked for as a part of KYC norms. But then now linking bank account with Aadhaar is a very different dimension. Now, Aadhaar and bank account linkage means it is virtually the individual bank account holder will be put to a big risk of disclosing his entire amount to the unknown thing. Not only the banker must know it, but then any other authority other than the banker also. So it leads to attack on its privacy, and once it is done, I mean, it is highly risky. This should be opposed. Supreme Court has already ruled many times that you can't link. Recently, a judgment that PAN and Aadhaar also should not be linked, and independence of that citizen's choice is there. You cannot make it compulsory. Now the bank account, once it is linked with Aadhaar, then the nation's wealth in the bank will be put to the risk, according to me. Recently, some bank accounts, debit card, credit cards were hacked from China. And if you know the BlackBerry, sometime back when they entered India, our own agency has put what you call stopper, created obstacles, so that because there's a server was somewhere in America or Canada. So this kind of a thing is there because they are doing spying. The linking Aadhaar is also part of, and once it is hacked, then there is a big risk for the bank customers and certainly to the privacy of Indian citizens also.
But Mr. Utagi, I also want to ask you this: the private banks, might have certain databases, and they might have the ability to manage a certain amount of data in their systems. But when we talk about the cooperative banks, we talk about the smaller banks. What sort of database and network do they have? Do they have the ability to keep all of this information safe? Vishwas Utagi.
These cooperative banks and private sector banks, their understanding about the whole system, their database is comparatively poor. In fact, many other recently we have seen, even the private sector banks, and they have been attacked. Particularly this Axis Bank and HDFC Bank and Kotak Mahindra. So in that case, accounts are being hacked. Then there is a question of money laundering. In that case, I think this linking of Aadhaar and PAN is disastrous. So it should not be allowed. Supreme Court is already sitting very correctly and staying very correctly.
Okay. And so let me now open this up. Let me now open this up to the entire panel. We also have people who are calling us right now from across the country. I want to bring in Shekhar, who's on the phone line from Bangalore. Shekhar, go ahead very quickly.
Hi everyone. I have one point specific to the address proof of people who don't have documents. Now there is a system wherein an introducer is a person of so-called eminence, and this introducer can certify address of a person who doesn't hold any documents.
Right.
Now, so this is done without even taking an NOC or an authentic document of the address owner, the address which is being provided by this person. So this is an extreme risk of fake addresses.
So
I'm not sure what is being done to
mitigate that risk. Inder Modi is on the phone line from Ahmedabad. Inder, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Inder.
Yes, I want to make 2-3 points. One is this whole idea of Aadhaar card being required for a bank account is utter nonsense. I mean, you go to a country like America, a 19-year-old first-year college student goes to Bank of America, just presents his ID card, and he walks out with the bank account opened. And you know that America is the most vulnerable, or they think they are most vulnerable to all these kinds of money laundering or attacks or everything. United Kingdom, even a foreigner goes in there, all they ask is, okay, show me your passport, show me your proof of address in UK, and you open the account. So if these countries, which are very large countries, very large economies, they can do without all these kinds of Aadhaar card and PAN card and Baap ka naam or Dadi ka naam and everything, then why the hell do we need all this in India? Let these boys, let these fellows go to America, UK, find out how they work without all this nonsense.
All right. Okay, all right. Shrikant is on the phone line from Bangalore. Shrikant, very quickly, go ahead.
Yeah, I am one of those sufferers of internet cyber crime, if you may.
Yes.
I lost about 9.5 lakhs from my bank account, which was transferred to another account in Andhra Bank, Bangalore. And I mean, that was my kind of life savings. But the money was transferred to Andhra Bank through a mobile app. Axis Bank does not have any control. Andhra Bank has not done the KYC properly. They have got the PAN card and the driving license. There is no driving license by that number, with that number.
Right. So it was a fake account. Right. So your question is, will Aadhaar stop this kind of crime? Ritesh Bhatia, will Aadhaar stop this kind of crime?
No.
Can at least, will his 9 lakh rupees, if it happened in the era of Aadhaar, would it have been safe?
Absolutely not fair. Firstly, let's understand that Aadhaar was actually made for the underprivileged people and for availing certain beneficiaries and other things. But it was more importantly for authentication and not identification. So today also, if you're telling me take an Aadhaar card, go open an account, great. You know, because Aadhaar card, how is it delivered? I mean, at least a PAN card is not, you cannot download it. It is delivered to your registered address. What about an Aadhaar card? You download it, open up it in Photoshop, change your picture, change your address, do whatever you like, looks exactly the same. So how is it going to help? The crime is just going to increase, the cyber crime, I mean to say.
Yeah, and you know, let me bring in Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, several questions. And I must tell you this very honestly, Mr. Agarwal, that our team spent a lot of time trying to get an even panel where we have at least 3 people for and 3 people against. We couldn't. We could only get 2 for, which is you and Mr. Harsh Roongta. Everybody else seems to think this is a bad idea. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, I'll ask you one question that popped up several times. It is this. Is the government's final aim here surveillance, where after we link everything in Aadhaar, the government will, through a push of the button, be able to tell for every citizen whom you called, whom you sent text messages to, where you spent your money, how much money got wired into your account, where you're getting your salaries from, where you traveled, where you did not go, where you swiped your card. Is that the final aim of bringing Aadhaar in compulsorily through a backdoor entry, like you're doing one more time here? Is that the aim of the government, Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal?
No, I don't. I would ensure you all of that this is not the aim of the government. If the government want to control that kind of activity from the bank account, they can already have all those information. But actually, I tell you, there will be always shortcoming in the technologies. When there are new technologies, you are adopting those technologies, there will always be scope for better improvement. But we have to move towards the newer technology. Ultimately, our country has seen several attempts to creating unique identity successively with PAN card, with passport and other things. But there had been manipulation and multiple identities were created. And this Aadhaar is considered to be an improved version of technological driven identity, where government is taking all the precautions so that unique identity is created. And that unique identity is being linked to bank accounts so that manipulation are removed or reduced. Ultimately, what the government is within its law through enactment of 139AA constitutionally to link these things to the bank account. So it is constitutionally valid, a better technology. It is with the aim of evading compliances, evading tax non-compliances or money laundering or layering of money accounts. There may be shortcomings, but let me finish. Let me finish. The ultimate thing is that compliance is always considered to be a hurdle hindrance to many of the activities. But if you talk of America, there is a social security number.
Mr. Agarwal, let's just respond to the points that you made about the fact that the government is fully within its rights, constitutionally to link Aadhaar compulsorily to banking. Swapnil Kothari, go ahead.
Mr. Agarwal, first of all, Mr. Agarwal, we heard you. I understood you. I understood your point. You are trying to make.
I'll come back to you, Mr. Agarwal.
I understood the point. The entire panel has understood from where you're coming from and where the government is coming from. Its ideas are and its intentions are very noble as what you are stating, but I doubt that very much so. It's nothing but another disguise of surveillance. That's one. Two, you mentioned the fact, now coming to the law point of Section 139AA of the Income Tax Act. That came in April 2017 by virtue of the Finance Act. 9th June was the order which declared constitutional validity of 139AA. But this notification came on 1st June, and that too under the PMLA rules. That is the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Correct? Now, my question to you is very simple. That why did it not come under the Income Tax Act? The government had a vast, it's got plenary power to issue this kind of a notification under most of its fiscal laws, and the most primary being the Income Tax Act. So why did it not come under that? That is one question. Now I'll give you the answer once you make an attempt to answer. Now please let me finish. Please let me finish. This is for the benefit of the viewers, which I want to state as to why the Supreme Court has always been giving caveats, even after linking these things and making it mandatory. Let me tell you one thing. The Supreme Court is making it very, very clear to the nation that the Aadhaar Act by itself does not make Aadhaar mandatory. So anything thereafter which follows or which ensues cannot be made mandatory as such. That's why it's giving you various caveats that the power of 139AA should be whittled down, so that the people who do not have Aadhaar and who are unable to link it to the PAN cards, link it to the PAN cards, do not face penal provisions to that extent. Secondly, now as far as on this topic which we are concerned with as to whether the banking, it makes sense to link it with the bank accounts. Imagine after I link it to the bank account and Aadhaar details are leaked, I am absolutely stripped naked as to what amount I have in my bank, what are my assets, and what am I doing next. If I'm buying a popcorn in a cinema theater with the use of a credit card, that also is going to be under surveillance. You please think about it. And please understand that it's a complete right to...
Ritesh, respond to the fact that Mr. Agarwal said that this sort of information is already available with the government. They don't need to link the Aadhaar cards to have access to this information. This is what Mr. Agarwal said.
Government can take all the information.
So why are we worried about surveillance then, Ritesh? Why do you think that this Aadhaar push will result in surveillance?
No. Why this?
No, if the government want to take this information, it is already available.
Yeah, but that's precisely the point that she's asking you. Then why make this mandatory at all?
So I want to understand from Ritesh Bhatia, who made this point, why does surveillance concern you if the information is already available with the government?
No, Faye, one more point.
Okay, Mr. Agarwal, go ahead.
Faye, only 30 seconds more. There are two issues. One thing is that it is the money laundering that the government wants to prevent because there are multiple accounts and people are layering their transactions through those accounts. That the government want to prevent that. Therefore, we have come out under the PMLA Act. The second thing is, in the KYC in the bank, all the information are already there. Just adding an additional information of Aadhaar number will not lead all the information being shared with the bank account and those so many apprehensions that are being shown. It is just an additional information in the KYC.
Fair enough. Let the panel respond to that. Those are my points. Let the panel respond to that. Point number one. We are only talking about preventing money laundering here, and all of this information is already available with the government. What are we so nervous about? Roongta.
The point I want to make is, I think there is this distaste for something that offends our sense of privacy, and I completely empathize and agree with that. But I think, as the BJP spokesperson says, a lot of this is already possible. What we have to look at is, what is the incremental risk? Are the hacking risks increasing? Maybe they are. But I mean, the hacking risks remain what they are. One important thing that we are forgetting is that this is just an authentication for opening the account. This is not a transaction level authentication that you are talking about. Every transaction isn't going to be using Aadhaar. So all that this does is it identifies the account to a unique identity, and I disagree with Ritesh when he says the kind of muling that has happened to a gentleman here. He mentioned about how his money was taken out, and if that KYC had actually been done with a unique ID, I think the chances of tracing that money would be bigger.
So I want to bring this up. I want to bring this up to the panel. I want to bring this up to the panel. Anybody who lives in Delhi, in the Delhi NCR region, I'll come to you. Anybody who lives in the Delhi NCR region, you've been receiving phone calls over the last 3 months of people saying, SBI बैंक से फ़ोन कर रहा हूँ, आपका आधार डिटेल चाहिए, आप मुझे अपना आधार डिटेल दे दीजिए. A few smart customers have asked a couple of counter questions and realized that this was a hoax call. I want to understand, Ritesh Bhatia, why is there a group of people, sort of collecting Aadhaar numbers right now, claiming to be from SBI Bank? What can they do with those Aadhaar? Let's assume I gave someone my 12-digit number. What can they do with that information?
Okay, so exactly. So now this is where it will answer all the questions and why I still say that Aadhaar is a complete no-no. Because what is happening is that cybercrime is just increasing. People are falling prey to it. Like, we just heard about the 9.5 lakh laws the gentleman had. So now if I have to go, so the modus operandi is simple. I get a call. These guys seek some information and start transferring the money to multiple bank accounts. Now, they have to open new accounts because these accounts are shut immediately the moment a case is lost. Now, so the moment they want to go and open up a new account, they need an Aadhaar card. So that is the reason why they are calling and now also seeking for Aadhaar cards. They have their mobile numbers, they have their address. Now, what else does the bank need?
Technically, the bank also needs PAN cards
and biometrics.
Depends.
And biometrics.
No,
you can't you need a biometric for the Aadhaar card to be embedded. I am very, very sure of that.
No, sir.
You cannot open a bank account. Just by knowing my Aadhaar number.
Sorry, let me disagree with you. The bank actually takes a photocopy of your Aadhaar card. It does not.
Just by knowing my Aadhaar number and by knowing my mobile number, knowing my bank account number, nobody can open a bank account just by knowing my Aadhaar number.
Absolutely not informed on this. In fact, today only when I spoke to my banker and I asked him what all I have to do, he says, sir, SMS कर दीजिए 12-digit number या तो online जाइए और कर दीजिए हो जाएगा. What happens now? This is identification. What about the authentication? Ideally, I should be called in the bank. My iris scan or my thumb impression should be taken, and then only it should be authenticated, and then it can be
I just
linked.
want to point out to Roongta that I've just opened a bank account, and no, my thumbprints were not taken. My iris scan was not taken. I want to bring in, I want to bring in Apar Gupta one more time. Apar, you talked about fundamental rights. One second. I want to go back to fundamental rights. I want to go back to the fact that the government, like Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal has told us, is preventing money laundering through this rule. Is that not enough of an argument for you?
So, the argument essentially is all of us are potential criminals, and let's place a very heavy-handed tool which takes away all our civil rights, essentially our right to privacy. What he's saying is all of us are potential money launderers, and the government will say that please let me complete, sir. Please let me complete. No, please let me complete, sir. I won't interrupt you. Please let me complete. Okay, so the restraint which he is seeking to place is a complete absence of privacy. Now, what are the privacy protections which are under the Aadhaar Act? They are completely absent. Now you look at the social security number which is being repeatedly referred to. It is governed by a privacy act. It does not have biometrics. Its use has been subsequently restricted time and again, and it's not been made mandatory for anything besides social security benefits. Now Aadhaar, you notice the function creep. Social security benefits, money laundering, tax evasion, terrorism. And what's the basis of all of this? Faulty statistics.
The Aadhaar authority itself says that 99.7% of people who hold Aadhaar have been granted it on the basis of pre-existing IDs, which means that if a person has a bogus ration card or has a bogus driver's license, on the basis of that, they have received an Aadhaar. So what is this so much stated security which the Aadhaar system is bringing about? I fail to understand that whether there has been any kind of public policy study, third-party scrutiny of the claims which are being made, and even in the absence of them, can we tolerate a complete breach of our privacy?
Absolutely.
Well, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, answer that question. I have another question for you, and I'm reading out of the Supreme Court, judgment of the 9th of June as far as PAN cards were concerned. It said if the PAN card of a person is withdrawn or nullified, it definitely amounts to placing restrictions on the right to doing business. Now, if the court observed that forcing that link does foul our fundamental right of livelihood, then shutting down our bank accounts because we don't have Aadhaar, doesn't that take it one step further? Aren't we fundamentally not understanding what the Supreme Court is trying to say to us?
No, if you link everything to your fundamental rights in the Constitution, then there can be no regulation, no rules and regulation at all.
Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, that's why we have fundamental rights in the Constitution.
Rewriting the Constitution, sir.
Ultimately,
Mr. Ambedkar will be turning in his grave. Sir, what are you saying?
There is a very clear reason why we have fundamental rights in our Constitution, simply so we can relink everything back to it and refer to what it is our Constitution gives us as citizens, especially in cases like this. So I'm sorry, I refuse to accept the fact that we can't regulate because you people are making a fuss about your fundamental rights. That's what fundamental rights are for.
No. The right to privacy. Fair. Let me finish.
Yes, please.
Right to privacy is the important right of the citizen, but that the protector of this right is the government. The government is having this data. Ultimately, if you are saying that don't have Aadhaar card, don't take biometric, don't take iris mapping to them, because then you are challenging the basic Aadhaar concept or unique identity.
Okay,
That's
Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, point number one, the protector of our fundamental rights is not the government, it is the court, it is the judiciary. Point number two, if you meant that you are protecting the data, can you conclusively tell me today, Mr. Agarwal, that there are no third-party vendors handling any of the Aadhaar data at all, and you can tell me fully conclusively that all of the data is completely safe?
That the government has already said that whatever precautions are required under the law, we have taken, categorically said. And ultimately, if you call of cooperative bank, already lot of information is there with the banks. The question is not that the government, the security. This is definitely an important concern, that whatever data is shared with the government, there has to be a security, cyber security with regard to debit card, everything with insurance, all those things. There is a definite concern. The government has said that cyber security laws are being enacted, but ultimately we are moving to a higher technology where the fraud and cyber crimes are also improving. So it's a continuous process where more security will be required. Even data loss has been done with the advanced countries also. But I would like to say on behalf of the government that government has committed that.
Let me also point out that the Supreme Court, there's a Supreme Court bench still hearing the matter of whether or not the right to privacy is being infringed upon because of the Aadhaar system. Somehow we are in a tearing hurry to make a quick cut a lane like we always do in this country and bring in a rule before that bench tells us what it really thinks. Anupam Saraph, go ahead.
Yeah, I think first I would like to rebut Mr. Agarwal on his claim that this is about preventing money laundering. I think from 2014 or even before, I have repeatedly been pointing to all the banking authorities as well as the government that Aadhaar-enabled payment systems are actually propagating what bankers call as money laundering. And therefore, unless they apply their mind and understand how Aadhaar is a money laundering tool which destroys the trace of money from an Aadhaar to Aadhaar money transfer, I think we have a non-starter. We are actually creating a mechanism whereby we will have funds from the Consolidated Fund of India which have to go as benefits and subsidies going into Benami accounts or into accounts which are in your name but are not in your control and opened in other branches. And therefore, there would be no mechanism.
That are coming in on the phone line. Niyaz is on the phone line from Ahmedabad. Niyaz, go ahead.
Question, ma'am.
Yes.
My mother is 76 years old,
yes,
and I have been to the Aadhaar center for quite several times, but her fingerprints doesn't come in the machine and it doesn't accept it. So till today, I am not able to get the Aadhaar card. Always it is rejected. So what should I do after 31st December?
What should you do? What should your mother do? She has a right to a bank account. Jayashree Bakshi from Pune, go ahead.
Yes.
Ma'am, good evening, Faye. Congratulations for the show. And I know what our Anupam staff is working for because I'm also from the Nagrik Chetna Manch. So I'd like to tell you one thing. Whatever this Aadhaar card is doing, we need a good transparency and we need a foolproof system. We were asked to convert our Aadhaar cards into smart cards and it did not accept my fingerprints and biometrics. Then in demonetization, Modi government did not accept, banks did not accept smart card. They were asking for Aadhaar cards. So the public suffered. Now what I'll say is that our children will have Aadhaar cards. Please understand, our already on Kerala website and many websites, people like Dhoni.
Yes, we've had repeated instances of leaking, massive leaks of Aadhaar data. That's now, if you, for example, viewers go onto your phones right now and Google Aadhaar data, you will get streams and streams of Aadhaar numbers of people where government offices have uploaded this data online without realizing that they are handling sensitive material and they shouldn't be, treating it that badly. Swapnil Kothari, I'm still, unfortunately for me, I'm still hung up about my fundamental rights. I think it's important.
Yes, absolutely. The fundamental rights are inalienable and absolutely paramount. Now, unless there is a supervening public interest, then only my right to privacy, which is my right to my fingerprints and my iris, is sacrosanct and can be violated or can be transgressed upon if there is a supervening public interest. If that public interest of money laundering, etc., as pointed out, is nothing but a guise of surveillance and it's obfuscated completely, then Aadhaar is very, very much less reliable and there cannot be any Aadhaar on that Aadhaar at all. Let me point that out very, very clearly to the government. This is something, unless you have adequate data protection laws, we have only 43 of the Information Technology Act today. Aadhaar Act, there is no protection at all. And we have right to privacy under Article 21. Now, that is absolutely inadequate for this kind of a step that which you are taking. You said cyber laws are being put in place. Get those laws first, sir, and then try to do this.
Absolutely. Pratima is on the phone line from Mumbai. Pratima, go ahead.
Hi, Faith. Thank you so much for listening to us. And I have a particular situation where our family member who is 93, she is unable to see or walk. Totally bedridden for 7 to 8 years now. Bank is threatening to shut her account. This is the account where her pension as well as her medical expenses are taken care from. It will be totally unfair if this happens. So what is the way forward?
What is the way forward? Gopal Krishna Agarwal, I just want to tell you the kind of questions I've received all day. Several elderly family members who do not have accounts. There are a lot of, older senior citizens who live by themselves, who don't have anybody to help them. People who live in senior citizen homes who aren't able to go to the Aadhaar centers to get their cards. They've received pensions. This is how they look after themselves. We have NRIs who have said that they have not changed their NRI status. They don't plan to come back to India before December. Are their accounts going to become completely inactive? We have people who've written back to us saying by not linking bank account and Aadhaar, if the account is non-existent, what happens to the money? What will happen to the money that is in that account? If there is an account in a child's name, what happens to that account? Do children have to get biometric Aadhaar cards done now on birth? These are the kind of questions that are coming online and on social media. Shouldn't the government make its stand clearer about what it's doing?
They've already made it compulsory.
You would answer these questions. Mr. Agarwal, if you want to answer any of our questions.
Definitely, I understand. Yes, I definitely understand these are the problems which the government has to solve. These are the issues which arise from implementation of this scheme, and the government is open to these issues which will be sorted out. That now you are pointing out, people are pointing out, these are the issues, there will be solution to them. And what alternative government will do, definitely we can take care of elderly people, which are genuine issues. In all implementation of any government scheme, new scheme, there will be issues. We are not saying the government is not open to modifications or rectification of some of the loopholes. Ultimately, all laws, whether in income tax, whether in corporate laws, mercantile laws, there are some loopholes, there are some improvement which are required, and that will be done.
Really if give anyone any confidence, actually.
NRI is not planning to come
to Okay, so I understand what you're saying. What we will continue to do, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, is constantly bring you voices of citizens who are concerned. Here's a voice. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, here's a voice. Anish called us from Mumbai. I don't have the time to put Anish on the air, but this is what he says, and it's important. He said, when I deposit money in my bank, they ask me for my mobile number, and I get calls from telemarketers. When I ask them, where did you get my number from? They said, from the bank. The banks are selling databases of our phone numbers. What is the guarantee that the banks will not sell databases of our Aadhaar details? What guarantee do we have that our Aadhaar details will not become public massive databases for banks and for telephone companies and for anybody else to sell? We know that you can sell a database for a lot of money, and that is that's a very good point that Anish has made. We are going to, on this channel, continue to bring forward any sort of concerns the citizens may have, whether you have concerns about your numbers being leaked, about your bank accounts being hacked into, or your fundamental rights. All of them are equal fundamental rights, most important in that list of concerns that citizens may have. And on this channel, my contact details will also be on your screen. Get in touch if you have concerns, and we'll bring it up, because I believe that this sort of thing is the most important. If we're talking about shutting down bank accounts, it means something to all and every one of us. This is the most important information you should have access to. Why is the government doing it? What is the motivation? And what should you do to make sure that your money and your data and your information is safe? That's the most important news this evening. That's something we'll focus on. Thanks for watching.